Punishing poverty, the problem of criminalizing homelessness. In almost every city in America, people experience homelessness. We encounter these individuals daily, yet often fail to truly see them. We have been taught to ignore their presence and view them as invisible. In 2024, there are over 500,000 people experiencing homelessness in America. 500,000 invisible people. Homelessness is the most visible version of poverty, yet it's often treated as something to be ignored rather than addressed. This disregard for the individuals experiencing homelessness has been reflected in our laws. Society has criminalized homelessness, pushing these individuals further into the margins. Anti-camping ordinances, panhandling bans, and sweeps of homeless encampments are just a few of the policies that treat people experiencing homelessness as problems to be erased and out of sight, out of mind. The criminalization of homelessness reveals our collective desire to ignore a reality that is too uncomfortable to confront. We try to push homelessness into places where it is unseen, away from our busy streets, libraries, parks, and shopping centers. By doing so, we not only fail to address the causes of homelessness, but also deny the humanity of those who experience it. By criminalizing people in crisis, we make it clear that in our society, being homeless is not a result of systemic failures or lack of opportunity. It's a crime. The disregard for people experiencing homelessness reveals why it's so important that we understand and address the criminalization of homelessness, because it perpetuates harm to these individuals, disregards human dignity, and prevents us from finding real, compassionate solutions. Like most poverty-related issues, homelessness is hard to define in one sentence due to how complex it is and the varied experiences of those who face it. For some, homelessness may mean living on the streets, sleeping in shelters or cars, while for others it may involve staying in temporary housing or bouncing between friends' homes. Despite its varied forms, homelessness universally represents a lack of stability, security, and basic human needs. In the United States, homelessness is legally defined as the condition of lacking a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence, including living in shelters, temporary housing, or places not meant for human habitation. To begin addressing homelessness, it is essential to first acknowledge what contributes to it. According to risk factors for homelessness, evidence from a population-based study, common risk factors for homelessness include childhood adversity, economic disadvantage, academic underachievement, mental illness, and drug use. These factors are largely systemic and not the result of individual failure, highlighting the need for a comprehensive solution that addresses the causes of homelessness. The criminalization of homelessness through policies such as anti-camping laws and panhandling bans fails to address these causes. Instead of providing solutions, these laws often punish individuals for their circumstances. For example, in Fresno, California, a 2024 anti-camping ordinance makes public camping, sitting, or lying a misdemeanor punishable with up to a year in jail, a fine up to $1,000, or both. Similar laws exist across the country. As Peter Edelman points out in Not a Crime to be Poor, The Criminalization of Poverty in America, that citywide bans on camping in public spaces have increased by 69%, on loitering, loafing, and vagrancy by 88%, and on living in vehicles by 143%. These numbers highlight the growing trend of penalizing individuals for simply existing in public spaces, rather than addressing the underlying issues of poverty that contributed to why they are in those public spaces. Edelman further emphasizes the severity of this issue, noting that homeless people are 11 times more likely to be incarcerated than the population as a whole, highlighting how individuals experiencing homelessness have been disproportionately pushed into the criminal justice system. There's a clear consensus among current responses. By incarcerating individuals experiencing homelessness, society absolves itself of the responsibility for aiding them. The criminalization of homelessness punishes individuals for their circumstances and also deepens the cycle of poverty, making it even more difficult for them to escape. The U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness describes this process as a costly revolving door that circulates individuals experiencing homelessness from the streets to the criminal justice system and back. This cycle is often fueled by policies that fine people for simply trying to survive, stripping them of vital resources that could otherwise help improve their lives. As Housing Not Handcuffs highlights, Financial obligations, such as fines for using a tent or a vehicle to shelter oneself, can prolong the amount of time that a person will experience homelessness, and can also leave homeless people less able to pay for food, transportation, medication, and other necessities. These fines only serve to worsen the already precarious situation of these individuals, forcing them to prioritize paying off debt over their basic needs, leaving them in constant states of instability. Finding a person experiencing homelessness for their circumstances is counterproductive and only worsens their situation. Criminalizing homelessness is not a viable solution. Instead, it perpetuates the very issues it seeks to address. Rather than providing support or rehabilitation, current policies serve to further entrench individuals experiencing homelessness and poverty. Sweeping, a common method of criminalizing homelessness, involves forcibly clearing homeless encampments, often with little or no prior notice. While California Governor Gavin Newsom claims that the intention behind sweeps is to protect the safety and well-being of our communities, this approach does little to safeguard individuals experiencing homelessness. Instead, it destroys the communities they have found. As No Rest for the Weary, Why Cities Should Embrace Homeless Encampments explains, disrupting encampments harms residents by taking away the safety of community and forcing them into a daily nightmare of searching for security, shelter, and food, making it impossible to focus on longer-term measures to end their homelessness. Additionally, the impact of their well-being is devastating. Housing Not Handcuffs highlights that sweeps often result in the destruction of homeless people's tents and other belongings used to provide some shelter for the elements, cause stress, and cause lots of sleep, contributing to worsened physical and mental health among an already vulnerable population. The destruction of their possessions adds to the trauma of homelessness. Furthermore, Max Jordan Nguemini points out that in encampment sweeps threaten homeless people's health, that some people lose their medication during sweeps, with no way to refill prescriptions. The Journal of American Medical Association further reports that sweeps lead to significant increases in drug overdoses, revealing the catastrophic health risks of this practice. Rather than protecting safety and well-being, sweeps add to the difficulties of escaping homelessness. Laws that criminalize homelessness often justify actions such as fines and sweeps as efforts to push individuals into shelters, which are presented as safer alternatives. However, this approach ignores the significant limitations of shelters in the U.S. For instance, Statista reports that in 2023, there were 358,435 beds available to homeless people in emergency shelters, while the estimated homeless population was 653,104. This stark disparity highlights the severe shortage of shelter capacity. Moreover, as Rankin explains in Punishing Homelessness, many shelters throughout the country impose various barriers to entry that render them functionally inaccessible. Beyond capacity issues, shelters often fail to provide the sense of community that encampments offer. As No Rest for the Weary, Why Cities Should Embrace Homeless Encampments observes, homeless encampments provide safety through a community, but the community in and of itself is a benefit as well. By living together, people experiencing homelessness create a community that does not occur in the transient circumstances of the street or in the homeless shelter. These shortcomings demonstrate that relying on shelters as the primary solution to homelessness is insufficient and undermines the critical support networks that many people experiencing homelessness rely on. Criminalizing homelessness raises significant ethical concerns, as it unfairly punishes individuals for their lack of stable housing that disregards their human rights. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights recognizes housing as a fundamental right, yet societal attitudes often fail to reflect this principle. We must recognize that not having a home does not make someone less human. People experiencing homelessness should not be subjected to laws that would be deemed unacceptable if applied to housed individuals. For instance, sweeping practices would be unthinkable if performed on someone's home, highlighting a double standard. Furthermore, policies that criminalize sleeping in public spaces or sitting on sidewalks deny individuals the right to exist in public spaces when they have no alternatives. These practices strip people experiencing homelessness of their dignity and are discriminatory. Housing First is an approach that prioritizes providing individuals experiencing homelessness with permanent, stable housing before addressing other issues such as substance abuse or mental health. It is based on the idea that having a safe, secure home is the foundation needed to improve overall well-being and tackle other challenges. According to Housing Not Handcuffs, the Housing First approach has been successful in various regions. For instance, in Marin County, California, chronic homelessness has decreased by 28% and overall homelessness by 7% since implementing this model. In Charlotte, North Carolina, permanent supportive housing reduced arrests by 82%, demonstrating its impact on public safety and residents' lives. Furthermore, the National Alliance to End Homelessness found that Housing First is significantly more cost-effective than emergency health care, criminal legal system costs, and other social services that are often required by people experiencing homelessness, further emphasizing its value as a sustainable solution. Despite widespread support for the Housing First approach, evidence accumulated over the past 2 decades indicates some major drawbacks. One key issue is that permanent housing units often attract individuals who are not chronically homeless, which diverts resources away from those most in need. For example, according to Judge Glock in Housing First is a failure, it has been found that cities need to build 10 permanent housing units to house a single chronically homeless person, meaning that the units are often not used efficiently. Furthermore, Housing First fails to address the underlying issues that contribute to chronic homelessness, such as mental illness or substance abuse. According to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Admission, 21% of individuals experiencing homelessness reported having a serious mental illness, and 16% reported having a substance use disorder. Without accompanying treatment or support, providing housing alone cannot reduce these issues. Without addressing these critical factors, Housing First will continue to fall short. However, it is important to note the broader and long-term benefits of the model. Housing First aims to address homelessness in a comprehensive way by offering permanent housing and tailored support to individuals at various stages of homelessness, including those who may not be chronically homeless. According to the Office of Policy Development and Research, Housing First has proven successful in housing individuals with mental illnesses and substance abuse disorders, as the model integrates voluntary supportive services to help individuals maintain housing stability. By preventing temporary homelessness from becoming chronic, the model helps reduce future reliance on emergency shelters and costly interventions. The criminalization of homelessness is an ineffective approach to a complex issue. Rather than offering solutions, it worsens the struggles of those already facing extreme hardship. Policies like anti-camping laws and sweeps fail to address the root causes of homelessness and instead continue a cycle of criminalization that denies these individuals their right to live with dignity. To successfully combat homelessness, we must shift our focus from punishment to support, creating policies that prioritize long-term solutions such as permanent housing. By acknowledging treating people experiencing homelessness with respect, we can begin to address the crisis in a meaningful way.